What if I told you that the wisest man in history already wrote down the secrets to transforming your daily life, and that most people completely ignore these teachings? While many chase after wealth, fame, or pleasure, Solomon left behind an eternal legacy that reveals how to make better decisions, avoid unnecessary suffering, and live with purpose. In this video, you'll discover 25 powerful lessons that can change the way you think, act, and relate to others. And the best part, you can start today. But first, if you want to walk in wisdom and not confusion, leave a like, subscribe to the Epiphania channel, and write in the comments, "I want wisdom for my daily life." Wisdom doesn't begin with intelligence or experience, but with something much deeper, the fear of the Lord. But this fear isn't terror, it's reverence. It's recognizing that we are not at the center of the universe, and that there is a God who sees everything, knows everything, and has a purpose for every life. Solomon was clear from the start. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Proverbs 1:7. Without this foundation, all human knowledge becomes limited, fragile, and even dangerous. True wisdom arises when we stop relying solely on our logic and start depending on divine guidance. Pursuing wisdom is more valuable than pursuing wealth. When Solomon had the opportunity to ask for anything, he chose wisdom. And what did he receive? Not just knowledge, but prosperity, peace, and renown. This choice shows that when we honor God in our priorities, He responds in ways we never imagined. Wisdom is not a talent reserved for a few. It's a path open to anyone who truly desires it. And the most incredible part is that God promises to give it generously to all who ask. James 1:5. We live in a generation that values speed over reflection, but Solomon teaches that wisdom is built over time, with humility and direction. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. And in all your getting, get understanding. Proverbs 4:7. He shows us that we must treat wisdom as a treasure, not a secondary option. Some chase success, power, or pleasure, but without discernment, all of that becomes a burden. Wisdom is what turns ordinary resources into extraordinary results. Just imagine how many decisions in your life would have been different if you had first sought understanding instead of reacting. Sometimes we want everything resolved quickly, but Solomon reminds us, every decision carries consequences. A life of wisdom isn't built on grand gestures, it is built on small daily choices guided by eternal principles. When we place God at the center, our vision becomes clear and our paths are straightened. Mistakes no longer destroy us, they become lessons that push us toward maturity. One of Solomon's greatest secrets was his ability to observe before acting. Instead of responding impulsively, he evaluated, discerned, and then spoke. Today, many people suffer because they make major decisions about relationships, investments, or career changes without seeking God or reflecting deeply. But if we invest time in prayer, study, and wise counsel, our choices align with higher purposes. That is the foundation of a stable, centered life that bears lasting fruit. Another key aspect at this stage is understanding that wisdom doesn't show itself in fancy words or elegant quotes, but in how we live. To be wise is to be just, prudent, humble, and patient. It's knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. It's correcting with love, forgiving without holding grudges, and acting without expecting a reward. Solomon doesn't call us to theoretical knowledge, but to daily practice that transforms. And this practice begins with a heart that fears the Lord, a heart that recognizes His sovereignty and surrenders to His will. That's why, before continuing to learn new lessons, it is vital to pause and ask yourself, who do I turn to when I need to make a difficult decision? How much space do I give God in my thoughts? If you seek Him first, everything else falls into place. It's not magic, it's divine wisdom working in everyday life. This is the key that opens all other doors. And as we continue uncovering Solomon's teachings, you'll see how this truth connects to every area of life. Solomon understood that everything in life has its time. It's not just about waiting, it's about trusting. In Ecclesiastes 3:1 he writes, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven." Patience is not useless passivity. It is strength that knows when to act and when to remain calm. In times where everything feels urgent, being patient is an act of wisdom. It's understanding that maturity can't be improvised, it must be built, and the sweetest fruits don't grow from anxiety, but from steady care. Prudence is wisdom in action. It's knowing that brute force doesn't always solve conflicts. Strategy, calm, and observation often do. Solomon said it clearly. A wise man is strong. Yes, a man of knowledge increases strength. Proverbs 24:5. In a world of impulsive decisions, the prudent person thinks before acting. They evaluate, wait for the right moment. A wise mind avoids many pains that a hasty heart doesn't see coming. Prudence is an invisible shield that protects the wise from traps disguised as opportunities. One of the most remarkable stories about Solomon was the judgment between two women claiming the same child. Without violence or shouting, he used discernment to reveal the truth. That moment didn't just show his wisdom, it revealed how prudence can be more effective than authority. Often the wisest path isn't to impose, but to illuminate, not to conquer, but to discern. True wisdom doesn't seek applause, it seeks justice. And prudence leads us to be peacemakers, where others only see conflict. In the professional world, many people chase quick results. But Solomon reminds us that diligence outperforms talent without consistency. The hand of the diligent will rule, Proverbs 12:24. Being diligent means committing to excellence, even when no one is watching. It's not about doing more, it's about doing it well, with love and attention. Diligence turns simple tasks into meaningful acts, and it's in consistency, not impulse, that great legacies are built. While some live dreaming of quick rewards, the wise focus on faithful work. Solomon never praised laziness or negligence. He knew that a strong nation begins with diligent leaders. And that applies to our homes, our relationships, and our finances. Where there's commitment, there's progress. Where there's neglect, decay soon follows. So ask yourself, in what areas do you need to apply more diligence? What parts of your life require more consistency and less improvisation? Another enemy of wisdom is vanity. In Ecclesiastes, Solomon calls it vanity of vanities. He had it all: riches, women, power, pleasures, and yet he saw the emptiness of chasing things that don't fulfill the soul. Vanity makes us run after what shines, while we ignore what lasts. What good is having much if we have no peace? What's the point of conquering the world if we lose our sense of purpose? Wisdom redirects us, from ego to essence, from the temporary to the eternal. And finally, true wisdom is revealed in how we treat others. Solomon said, "He who walks with the wise will be wise." Proverbs 13:20. The company we keep shapes our destiny. Just as iron sharpens iron, the soul is shaped by friendships. This isn't pride, it's discernment. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, who challenge you, who inspire you to grow. Because wisdom is not a lonely road. It's a network of influences that transform us daily. Solomon's wisdom goes beyond intellect. It touches the heart. One of his most repeated principles is honesty, because without truth there is no trust, and without trust there's no growth. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who deal truthfully are his delight. Proverbs 12:22. Being honest means being transparent, even when no one is watching. Truth, though it may hurt at first, is always lighter than a lie burdened with consequences. We live in an age where appearances are easy to create. Social media masks empty words. But Solomon reminds us that true honor is born from sincerity. An honest person is a free person, free to live without guilt, to look others in the eye, to build deep relationships. Honesty is not about being perfect, it's about being whole. It's admitting mistakes, asking for forgiveness, and choosing the right path. How have you treated truth in your daily life? Is there something you need to set right? Another hidden gem in Proverbs is the value of self-control, especially when it comes to anger. He who is slow to anger has great understanding. Proverbs 14:29. We all feel anger, but the wise don't let emotions control their words or actions. Emotional control is a sign of spiritual maturity. Instead of exploding, they breathe. Instead of shouting, they pray. Solomon doesn't deny anger. He redirects it, and he teaches us to respond instead of react. In arguments or tense moments, one poorly chosen word can destroy years of relationship. Solomon understood that sometimes silence is wiser than an impatient reply. It's not about suppressing emotions, but about channeling them wisely. Before speaking, ask yourself, does this build or tear down? Does it heal or hurt? Wisdom in speaking begins with wisdom in thinking. What comes from our mouth was born first in the heart. Humility is another pillar of wisdom. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. Solomon was a king, but he never stopped recognizing his dependence on God. The wise don't boast in their power, they rejoice in their ability to learn. Humility opens doors that pride keeps shut. It allows us to grow, to receive advice, and to accept correction without resistance. The humble don't think less of themselves. They simply remember they are human. How often do we stop learning because we think we already know enough? How many opportunities do we miss because we won't admit a mistake? Humility makes us flexible, open, and sensitive to God's voice and the voices of others. Solomon didn't just speak about humility, he lived it. That's why his wisdom still impacts lives today. True greatness doesn't lie in dominating, but in serving, listening, and becoming better every day. Finally, Solomon warns us about the danger of making hasty decisions. Also, it is not good for a soul to be without knowledge, and he sins who hastens with his feet. Proverbs 19:2. How many times have we made choices impulsively, without thinking, without praying, without seeking advice? Wisdom takes time. It requires reflection and counsel. Not every opportunity is from God. Not everything that shines is gold. The wise observe, ask, and only then do they act. What decisions are you about to make? Are you letting wisdom guide your steps? A wise life is, above all, a just life. Solomon wrote, "To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice." Proverbs 21:3. This reveals a profound truth. God delights more in our just actions than in religious words. It's not enough to pray, sing, or appear spiritual. True wisdom is shown when we treat others with fairness, compassion, and integrity. Justice isn't just a legal concept. It's a daily practice reflected in every decision we make. At work, in the family, and even in small daily gestures, wisdom shows in how we treat those who can give us nothing in return. To be just is to give each person what they deserve, without favoritism or hidden agendas. But it also means being merciful, recognizing that we all fall short and that compassion is a redemptive form of justice. Solomon encourages us not to live by appearances, but by principles, because a life built on justice becomes as solid as a rock. Another area where wisdom is vital is how we manage our resources. Solomon wrote, "There is desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man squanders it." Proverbs 21:20. This invites us to live with financial prudence. It's not about hoarding wealth, but about using what we have wisely. Spending without control, going into debt for things we don't need, or failing to plan for the future leads us away from the balance God desires. Being wise with money is a sign of maturity. It's learning to say no to impulses and yes to purpose. It's setting something aside today so we don't suffer tomorrow. It's investing in what builds up, not just what entertains. Solomon doesn't condemn wealth. He warns against a lack of self-control. Good stewardship honors God, blesses our family, and allows us to be generous. How are you using your resources? Are you sowing into eternity or only feeding the moment? And speaking of priorities, Solomon also challenges us to focus on the long term. In Proverbs 13:11 he says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." In other words, true success doesn't come through shortcuts, but through consistency. We live in a world obsessed with fast results, but wisdom builds slowly, patiently, step by step. And what is built with faithfulness stands strong, even in the storm. Gratitude is another secret to a fulfilled life. In Proverbs 15:13, Solomon says, A merry heart makes a cheerful countenance. A grateful life isn't the one that has everything. It is the one that values what it already has. Giving thanks for the simple things opens our eyes to the miracle of the present. And when you give thanks, your perspective changes. Complaining paralyzes and gratitude propels. Even when the day is hard, there's always something to be thankful for. And that act transforms the soul from within. Finally, Solomon reminds us that time is one of the most precious gifts we have. To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. Using time well is using life well. We can't control how fast it moves, but we can control where it goes. Are you investing your time in what really matters? Family, faith, purpose, rest, service. All of these require intention. The wise don't live in a rush, they live with focus, because they know that each day is a seed for eternity. One of the wisest acts a person can do is to forgive. Solomon says, "He who covers a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates friends." Proverbs 17:9. Forgiveness not only heals others, it heals us. When we choose to no longer carry the weight of resentment, we make room for peace, joy, and inner freedom. To forgive is not to forget the hurt, but to stop feeding it. It's breaking invisible chains that tie us to the pain of the past. Many times we hold on to wounds for years, thinking that time alone will heal them. But Solomon teaches that forgiveness is active. It's a daily choice. It's looking at others with compassion, not condemnation. When we forgive, we're not excusing the wrong, but freeing our hearts from its grip. Wisdom calls us to cover offenses with love, to restore instead of destroy, to build instead of divide. Is there someone you need to forgive? Or perhaps, do you need to forgive yourself? Alongside forgiveness, Solomon highlights the power of words. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18:21. Our words carry weight. They can lift or crush, heal or wound, inspire or paralyze. A wise person measures their words because they know every sentence is a seed, one that can either bloom or poison. How many times has an encouraging word saved us on a dark day? And how often has an unfair comment left a deep wound? To speak with wisdom is not to speak a lot, it's to speak with purpose. Solomon doesn't call us to total silence, but to discernment. There's a time to speak, a time to comfort, a time to correct. The wise aren't driven by impulse, but by intention. Before speaking, they ask, does this bless? Does this build up? Does this reflect God? Because every word is an opportunity to bring light or cast shadow over someone's life. Another great battle of the soul is anxiety. Solomon addresses it with sensitivity. Anxiety in the heart of man causes depression, but a good word makes it glad. Proverbs 12:25. Anxiety traps us in fears of the future and steals our present peace. But wisdom offers an antidote, a word of encouragement, right thinking, and trust in God. We are not alone. Often, a wise voice is the balm we need to breathe again with hope. When we feel overwhelmed, the answer isn't to deny the emotion, but to face it with truth. Solomon invites us to trust, to pause, to remember that there's a greater purpose even when we don't understand it. Anxiety loses strength when we stop fighting alone and allow God, His Word, and community to hold us up. Wisdom teaches that asking for help is not weakness, it's wisdom. Finally comes the difficult yet powerful lesson of accepting correction. Do not correct a scoffer, lest he hate you. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love you. Proverbs 9:8. The wise are not easily offended. They are grateful when someone reveals a blind spot, a harmful attitude, or a wrong path, because they know growth hurts, but staying stuck hurts more. Correction is not rejection, it's refinement. And those who embrace it go further than those who only listen to what they want to hear. Do you have someone in your life who corrects you with love? Are you able to receive a hard word without shutting down? Solomon reminds us that the wise aren't those who already know everything. They are those who never stop learning. And in that constant learning, even the wounds from correction can become scars of wisdom. With God-given wisdom, Solomon made it clear that no one reaches fullness by walking alone. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Proverbs 15:22. Seeking advice isn't a sign of weakness, but of maturity. When our emotions cloud our reason, when pride closes our ears, a wise word can be the light that keeps us from stumbling. The wise don't pretend to know it all. They recognize that God often speaks through people with experience and discernment. Having a circle of trusted people who speak the truth in love is an invaluable gift. A mentor who's walked ahead, a friend who truly knows us, a mother who prays for us. These are divine instruments. Solomon urges us to surround ourselves with wise and humble people, because a single conversation with the right person can save us from years of pain. Who are you listening to? Are your decisions shaped by wise voices or by fleeting impulses? Along with wise counsel, Solomon highlights the importance of using time well. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, he says, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens." Time doesn't stop or go backward. Every second is a seed planted in our future. The wise don't run aimlessly, they manage time as a sacred resource. Knowing when to act, when to wait, when to speak, and when to be silent is part of the emotional intelligence that builds a meaningful life. We live surrounded by rush, crowded schedules, and overwhelmed minds. But how much of what feels urgent is truly important? Solomon invites us to pause and reflect. Where are you investing your days? Do your priorities reflect your true values? Time isn't just about productivity, it's about purpose. Spending time with God, with family, with yourself, that too is wisdom. The soul doesn't bloom in speed, but in mindful attention to the present. In addition to time, the wise person values steadfastness in work. Solomon wrote, "All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty." Proverbs 14:23. Lasting success doesn't come from empty promises or emotional shortcuts. It comes from commitment. Diligence isn't just working non-stop. It's working with intention, excellence, and faithfulness. The wise understand that small, consistent efforts can produce great and lasting results. Many people get discouraged when they don't see quick results, but Solomon encourages us to take the long view. Like a farmer who doesn't panic when the seed doesn't sprout overnight, the wise wait for harvest time. Being faithful in the small, the hidden, the quiet, that's an act of faith. Not everyone will see your process, but God does. And the fruits will come, in His time, not ours. What areas of your life need more consistency and less anxiety? Finally, wisdom helps us distinguish between the urgent and the eternal. The world shouts, but God whispers. Some decisions seem important, but only feed the ego. Others, quiet and unnoticed, can shape destinies. The wise don't get swept away by the moment. They evaluate, they pray, they reflect. Because every choice, no matter how small, can open or close doors forever. To live with wisdom is to live with eternal perspective. The peak of all wisdom, according to Solomon, lies in one internal decision: to trust God completely. He wrote, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding." Proverbs 3:5. In a world that glorifies self-sufficiency, this advice sounds counterintuitive. But here's the key: the truly wise don't rely solely on their own understanding. They surrender to the perfect design of the Creator, because trust isn't weakness. It's resting in the one who sees what we cannot see. In times of uncertainty, when everything feels unstable, Solomon urges us to acknowledge God in all our ways, not just in spiritual moments, but in work decisions, relationships, finances, emotions. And when we do, God promises, "And He will make your path straight." This is a promise for those who dare to let go of control. Sometimes the wisest move isn't to press forward. It's to pause and say, "Lord, show me your way." Trusting God doesn't erase difficulties, but it transforms the way we face them. Even with all his wisdom, Solomon experienced moments of emptiness and confusion. What kept him grounded was knowing that God is still on the throne. Even when we don't understand the why, we can still trust the who. That trust brings peace, and that peace becomes the soil where wisdom grows. Because only those who rest in God can act with true discernment. But wisdom isn't a goal you reach once and for all. It's a lifelong pursuit. Solomon never stopped learning. His writings are filled with reflections on life, the human heart, and the character of God. He understood that each day brings new chances to grow. The wise don't get comfortable. They ask, examine, repent, adjust. In every season of life, there's a new lesson. And the one who has ears to hear will learn even in the silence. It's also important to remember that wisdom grows stronger in community. Knowing isn't enough. It must be lived out. And we live it out in relationships, in how we treat those around us, how we behave when no one is watching, how we respond to injustice or pain. Solomon didn't teach from an ivory tower. His proverbs were for the people, for daily life, for hearts that seek understanding. Solomon also revealed something deeper. Wisdom prepares us for eternity. It is not just for a better life here. It aligns us with the values of God's kingdom. Every wise decision reflects something of God's nature: justice, mercy, truth, humility. So the wise not only impact the present, they sow into the eternal. Are you living only for today, or are you planting seeds for eternity? And if there's one final lesson above all the others, it's this: wisdom is available to everyone, but few truly seek it. Solomon was a king, but his wisdom didn't come from the throne. It came from the fear of the Lord. You don't need a palace or a title. All you need is a heart willing to listen, to learn, and to apply. Wisdom is an inheritance God wants to give you, but the choice is yours. Will you live guided by the opinions of the world, or by the eternal principles of the greatest wise man in history? So now, what will you do with all this wisdom? Will you store it away in the back of your mind, or live it out, where it can truly transform your life? Knowing isn't enough. What changes destinies is living with intention, with discernment, with a heart open to correction and eyes fixed on the eternal. Today, God reminded you that there is a higher way, a wiser path, a fuller life. Will you dare to walk it? Write in the comments, "I want to live with wisdom every day," if you were ready to apply even one of these 25 lessons this week. And if this message spoke to your heart, don't leave without clicking like, subscribing to the channel, and activating the bell to receive new teachings that will strengthen your faith, mind, and purpose. Because wisdom isn't a destination, it's a way of life, and your new life can start today.